Welcome to the Positively Joyful Productivity Show, where joy isn't a reward for productivity, it's the secret ingredient. I'm your host, Nicole Louise, coach, wife, and dog mom. This is a no-kid zone by design, created for women who are child-free, childless, or an empty nester embracing your next chapter. You all belong here. Each week, you'll hear inspiring stories from women around the world and learn tools, mindset shifts, and practical strategies for living a joyful life. You'll also discover the science behind why focusing on joy fuels focus, motivation, and lasting productivity. Let's get inspired, get organized, and create a life full of freedom, focus, and joy. Hey there, and welcome to the Positively Joyful Productivity Show. I'm your host, Nicole Louise, and I'm going to talk to you about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. So it is currently summertime, and I'm a teacher by day, so I'm currently on summer break. And one thing over the years that I have noticed about myself is that I struggle with what I'm calling rest guilt. And you might be wondering what rest guilt is, or maybe you are very familiar with it yourself. But if you're not quite sure what I mean by that term, this is what it is. So, rest guilt is when you feel guilty for resting and recovering and rejuvenating. And I'm going to get more into, the more specifics of it into the episode, but just to give you a brief umbrella overview of what I'm talking about. And I think that this is something that so many women struggle with. In talking to my friends and relatives, it's something that I feel is definitely a woman problem. Like, I think we struggle with this more than men do, or at least outwardly. So, if you're a busy, successful career woman like myself, we're conditioned and raised to be go, go, go and put everybody else's needs above your own. And so there's a lot behind this. But anyway, so again, this is something that's been on my mind as someone who is on summer break at the moment from my teaching job. And, it's something that I've grappled with for many, many, many years. And, something I'm still working through, something I'm still, struggling with. I've gotten better for sure. But it is something that, I know other women are struggling with this too. And so this was on my mind, and I wanted to speak with you about this today. All right. So let's kind of get into it here. So let's talk about rest guilt. Let's get into it a little bit deeper. So rest guilt is kind of has like three components. So there's feeling guilty when you're relaxing. There's anxiety around being perceived as lazy. And there's this third kind of weird thing where you use rest to procrastinate, which leads you to never actually feeling rested. So let me talk about each one of those a little bit more in depth. So feeling guilty when you are relaxing, I think that probably most women struggle with this because, again, this goes back to, societal conditioning where we are really, really conditioned to put everyone else's needs above our own. And, that stays with us, that carries with us through our careers, through adulthood. Whether you're single, married, whatever your situation, there is that guilt that comes along with just sitting down and doing nothing. And so there's this guilt around actually resting and recharging, which when you stop and just take that sentence in for a moment, it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds absolutely crazy. Resting and recharging, but you feel bad and guilty about it? What? It doesn't make any sense logically, but it's that internal struggle, right? It's all of the stuff that your brain is telling you because of all of the conditioning and societal expectations and, everything that's been piled onto us since we were young girls. All of that compiles. And so when you actually take a minute for yourself, there's like this, I'm not supposed to be doing this. This is bad kind of feeling, right? So that's the first component of rest guilt. The second one is there's this anxiety that you can feel around being perceived as lazy. And so when you take a moment to unwind or rejuvenate, take a nap even, there's this little nagging voice in the back of your mind that is telling you you're being lazy. And you fear that others will perceive you as being lazy. I can tell you firsthand that I definitely struggled with this one. And I didn't really realize it until many years later. But I definitely felt bad. For example, if it was summer break and I'm not working as a teacher, and my husband is still going to work, there was guilt around, oh man, I sat and watched a show on Netflix today and I didn't do the laundry or whatever, right? Or guilt around, oh man, he's at work and I'm taking a nap. And I didn't really understand where that was coming from until many years later when I was doing some inner work and, looking at my limiting beliefs and where these kinds of thoughts actually stem from, because they do stem from somewhere when you dig into it more. Again, it goes back to that societal conditioning that we're all brought up with and all have to face and deal with as young girls. And again, that carries with us, into adulthood. And we are very often taught and conditioned that, like, you don't take a nap, you just keep going, you push through, your needs don't matter, everyone else comes above you. Like, those are the things that we are taught. And that is where this anxiousness or anxiety around, you think that people are going to think that you are lazy, that is where that comes from. So it's absolute nonsense, first of all. And just recognizing that and understanding that first and foremost is crucial to kind of starting to unwind some of this. So that's the second component. And the third is using rest to procrastinate instead of just getting things done, which leads to you feeling never really rested. And I, again, struggled with this. I struggled with all three. I'm going to be very honest. These are things that all three things I've struggled with over the years. Um, and an example of using rest to procrastinate for me personally was years ago. I had no structure in my life. I had no routines for anything. I had no idea what I was eating every day. Laundry got done like whenever. It was just very unstructured and unorganized. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but as human beings, we thrive with routine and we thrive with organization. And not having that creates a whole lot of chaos for you. So anyway, I would use resting, aka like sitting in front of the TV all day long on every weekend. I would say that I was resting because I was so tired and so stressed from work, which was true. I was feeling those things. However, when I would sit and Netflix all day long and not do anything else, as you can imagine, my to-do list just compiled and compiled and compiled. And as I looked around my house, like it was not organized. Like there were constant visual reminders of things I had to do. And it just added and compounded my stress. So that's the third component of rest guilt. And using rest to procrastinate, that's a little kind of a little spin-off. It's not necessarily guilt tied to guilt, but it is a true component of this where, using that as an excuse rather than getting stuff done, you have to be really careful of that and you have to really be honest with yourself and ask, like, is this true rest or am I really procrastinating? And I think the biggest, most obvious way to tell is, is this prolonged? Like, are you doing this for many, many, many hours on end and you're just completely ignoring what else needs to get done? Is this a pattern? That's the other thing. Like, this was totally my pattern. It was every weekend I was doing this. And again, nothing else was getting done. So that's a really easy way to kind of determine for yourself, is it true rest or is this my procrastination pattern? So if any of this sounds like you, or if you're relating to any of this, so keep on listening because we're going to jump into what's going on and then what to do about it next. So now I want to talk to you about the emotional, mental, and physical consequences of rest guilt and not resting and what that does to you. I'm sure you can imagine or from your own experience, what can happen. So chronic stress, burnout, decreased productivity, and diminished joy. Those are the big consequences of constantly feeling guilty over resting and recharging and recovering. So, as I mentioned in my previous example, sitting in front of the TV all day long, that totally contributed to chronic stress. I was always stressed because things never got done. And, I was like, when am I going to do this? Even though I had an entire day, it just felt like I had no time, right? Even though I actually did. And so it totally contributed to chronic stress, which led to burnout for me. There were many components to that, or many contributing factors, I should say, but this procrastination and not resting properly, which led to chronic stress, led to burnout for me. I've already illustrated how it contributes to decreased productivity, like you think you're resting, but you're really not. In addition to that, when you're not resting, you're not able to fully focus and fully have that mental clarity to be able to perform or do the task that needs to be done. And so you think pushing through and not resting is actually a good thing, but what actually happens is that it decreases your productivity. It increases the amount of time that it takes to complete a task because you're not in it. You're not completely focused. You're not mentally clear. You might have brain fog. You're just not in it. And so ultimately that leads to things taking way longer than they should, rather than if you just rested and recharged and then got back to it. And diminished joy. So clearly, if you're feeling stressed, burnt out, and you're not getting stuff done, you are not going to feel very joyful and happy, are you? And your life is not going to feel joyful and happy. So these are some pretty big reasons to pay attention to this conversation and to notice these things within yourself and then take some steps to work through this and, overcome that guilt. So, on a personal note, I was not checking in with myself ever. I was just working, working, working. I was teaching. I was building my business on the side, and I was just pushing through and go, go, go all the time, like that very like hustle culture mentality. And I was just working, working, working. So what happened was, as you probably could guess, I got sick. I was really moody and very easily agitated. And no, it wasn't due to the hormones. It was way beyond that. It was just, I was agitated and like cranky over everything. And I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off all the time. Like I was just spinning, 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 working, 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 but like nothing was ever getting done. So, as you can see from that example, it's pretty obvious again why these things are sabotaging your life and your well-being. And so I've illustrated all of the bad things. We've talked about all the bad and why this is bad. So let's dive into some reframing and how we can fix this, because that's what we want to know, right? That's the important stuff. So I want you to start by, well, first of all, step one is something different, but I think step one is just recognizing this in yourself. That's always step one with everything. You have to be aware of it, because if you're not aware that this is happening, then you're never going to make changes. So be really, really honest with yourself and identify which of these you are struggling with. Maybe all three, like myself, maybe just one or two, but you need to identify that first. Then let's get into step one. So, step one is to just reframe rest as essential productivity. So, again, I want to go back to when you are rested, you are focused, you are in the game. Your head is clear, you're making good decisions, you're creating good content, whatever your job is, you're at your best when you are rested. We all know that, right? But you have to really reframe that and get that thinking solidified to your core so that you're living it and not just thinking about it. So, a tip to help you do this is to schedule rest deliberately, like it's a critical appointment. So, put it in your calendar, set reminders, make sure you're setting aside time every day for rest. I personally, like right now, as I've said, it's summertime and I'm home. And so I have what I call lunchtime snuggles with Abby every day. So I get my lunch and we snuggle up on the couch and I'll watch an episode of whatever's on TV and we just snuggle together and sometimes we take a nap. But that's my little rest and recharge, during the summer. Now, when I'm in full swing when it's the school year and when I'm teaching, I schedule rest before and after work. So I will modify my regular routine. If I'm feeling exhausted, instead of getting up at 4 in the morning, I will sleep in because I know I need that rest. And same thing at night. If I'm really exhausted, I'll go to bed a little bit earlier. I won't do certain activities. And then on the weekend, I really make sure I'm getting a nap because I am a nap queen. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. So I really make sure that I prioritize that when I can. So that's step one. Reframe rest as essential productivity. Step two is to set boundaries for your protected time. So you can do this by clearly defining and communicating your non-negotiable downtime. So, for example, you can state to your significant other, I need a 30-minute nap right now so that I can recharge and be ready for dinner with our friends tonight. So that's just very clear, very explicit. I need X so that I can Y, Z, whatever. I need A so that I can be B. There we go. But it's very clear, it's very specific. You're stating your needs, you're setting a boundary around that time that you need to rest and recharge. For work, you can set strict go home times. I know this is something that as a teacher I see as a huge problem in the profession. Teachers don't leave at contract time like ever. I do because I value my personal time and I understand that teaching is a job and there's a whole thing. But anyway, I set that boundary for myself. Like, I have to get home, I have to do X, Y, and Z, I have to take care of this, that, and the other thing. Therefore, I have to leave at contract time. And you can do that for yourself in your career. I have to leave by X time every night because I have to, whatever it is you have to do for yourself to rest and recharge. And here's the thing with that, especially in the workplace, you don't owe anyone an explanation. It is your personal time. You don't have to explain why you're leaving when your day ends. You don't owe anybody an explanation for that. That is your time. So if somebody looks at you funny because you're walking out early, let them. In the famous words of Mel Robbins, let them. For real though, they're just jealous because they have to stay late, because they don't prioritize themselves, or they aren't as efficient as you, or fill in the blank with whatever you feel. But you have to set those boundaries around your rest and recharge time. All right, step 3, I want you to cultivate joyful rest activities. See, we're tying the joy in here. So I want you to identify rest activities that energize you and not just distract you. And I bring this up because a lot of us can go down that slippery social media slope, right? And scroll on TikTok or watch YouTube videos or, whatever your thing is online. Those activities distract you. They do not recharge you. Notice the next time that you're on social media, notice how you feel afterwards. It's probably not really great. Maybe you're feeling okay, but it's not rejuvenating you. It's not re-energizing you. So I want you to tap into that and pay attention. So identify actual activities that actually help you rest and recover and rejuvenate. Things like taking a walk in nature, taking a nap, those kinds of things re-energize you. Doing some yoga, whatever it is for you, reading a book, again, whatever it is for you. I could go on and on. But you need to identify for yourself those joyful things that actually recharge you. So I have noticed that the more I am checking in with myself and the more that I'm taking those rest breaks, whether it's in the summer or during the school year, the more productive I am. And again, this ties back to it goes back to when you're working on what needs to get done, your brain, like you're 100% in it. You're 100% focused, or maybe 95, but you're pretty close, right? And conversely, when you're running on fumes because you haven't rested, you're lacking focus and mental clarity, which of course increases the time that it takes to complete a task or a project. All right. So I want to give you some things to reflect on at the end of this episode. This is a little different than what I normally do, but I want to give you some tools and some things to reflect on today. So as you've been listening to this, I'm sure many things have been swirling through your brain. But now I want you to think about what belief about rest is keeping you stuck in guilt. So, what are those beliefs that you have kept you stuck and feeling guilty about recharging yourself? Think about that. And what small boundary can you set today to protect your rest? So I want you to think about those things. If you are a journaler, go write it out. Go journal on these things. If you want to just think and answer, you think and answer. I'm more of a think and answer kind of person. But if you like journaling, then have at it. So, what belief about rest is keeping you stuck in guilt? And what small boundary can you set right now, today, to protect your rest? Okay. Again, write them down, think about them, tell a friend, put it on a post-it note, but hold yourself accountable to this. And then I want you to take action. Take messy action. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, but take one step forward toward protecting your rest, because that, my love, is going to skyrocket your productivity and skyrocket your joy. And that is what we're all about, right? Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I would love to hear from you on this episode. So, what was the belief that kept you stuck? And what boundary did you set? I would love, love, love to hear from you. So, head over to LinkedIn and let me know. Send me a message. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up. So, head over to LinkedIn, let me know. And in the meantime, make rest your priority today and every day moving forward. You're going to thank me later, I promise. All right, that is it for now. You have a beautiful week, and I will chat with you soon.